What's up, YouTube? Mr. Missy here, and today we're going to be talking about how broken Terrorzone Andy is and just how good Terrorzone bosses are in general. Now, Terrorzones are something that was introduced in Diablo 2 Resurrected a couple of patches ago, 2.5 or 2.6, somewhere around there. I think 2.5 and then 2.6 they brought it down to single player, which is where we were able to extract more data and figure more pieces out about it. So, what is a Terrorzone? Essentially, once every hour, it will rotate between a different zone in the game. This is predictable in single player, thanks to being able to use the seed and the time zone, and online, unpredictable for what it will be, or you can at least try and guess, but we don't have an exact way of knowing. So, Terrorzones are areas that are leveled up to your level +2. So this means to a degree, right? You can go max level 96 in Hell. In Nightmare, it's like 70 something, and then normal like 40 something, 50, somewhere around there. But essentially, you can get areas that are lower level and raise the level up. So if you're going to somewhere like the Bloodmoor, which normally has a much lower level, you can instead go there while it's terrorized, and now the level will be raised to your level +2, assuming you're a higher level than the original area level. This, of course, will then raise the monster level of all the levels in said area, which then, of course, improves the drops and improves the experience and everything that is there. So, what are the big implications of this? Number one, something like the Bloodmoor, when it's terrorized, if you're level 95, 96, 97, 98, it will give more experience and be better farming than farming Diablo and Baal in the previous patches when you were those levels and trying to get experience, right? Which is crazy, because normally if you're like a level 98 trying to hit 99, Diablo, Baal, and Nullithak are the only three monsters that are really giving you experience. This is due to a whole formula for how it calculates and the difference between your level and the monster level. So if you're there now and it's level 96, the Bloodmoor alone will give more experience than that and be faster. So I actually think that's really nice because that improves all of your just experience gain. It doesn't make it so crazy that it's like not fun. You get there in like 10 hours or anything, but it improves it and it moves you around. Now, additionally, it also improves the drops. And this is where you can dive into some crazy math, and there's a lot of stuff to discuss here. So let's start with the first part. It improves the drops overall because you're fighting higher level monsters, right? Even before the highest level areas that you were going to be fighting mobs in, we're going to be area level 85s. This means the champions are monster level 87, and the unique bosses in there, this would just be, whatever little monster it says, like, it's got like Ashwound the Unclean, and then he has the minions around them. Those monsters will be level 88. So that would be the highest level that they would be before. And now, of course, those monsters will be level 99 because 96 is the area, 98 is what champions, they're +2 on the area, and 99 +3 on the area is what those little unique and minion packs will be. So now they're level 99, they just have better drops overall, and if you are at least level 91, you will get even better chances and drop chances for the higher TC items. These are going to be your Griffins, your Grandfather, your Death Fathom, right? These very high treasure class items. The Tyriel's Might, the Death Fathom, I already said Death Fathom, Death's Web, all of these items up in this place. So it's very, very nice for just this in general. However, when you get to bosses, it starts getting even more ridiculous. So your bosses in general are already pretty good, but a lot of the limits that they end up having come from what they can drop with their treasure class, right? So, for instance, Andariel drops crazy good loot, but she's pretty capped on her treasure class there. You're not dropping a Griffin's off her. You're not dropping a, Tyriel's Might or the Death's Web or Mang Song's Lesson. None of those are dropping because she doesn't drop the base for it. She doesn't drop an Archon Staff. She doesn't drop a sacred armor. She doesn't drop a diadem. These high class bases will never drop from her, which means you can never roll the unique version of what is being dropped. Pretty simple, right? But with the Terrorzone change, that all shifts. So this was actually true for Andariel, for Duriel, for Mephisto, and heck, even Diablo was not capable of dropping a lot of these items. He could drop some of the items here and there, but he couldn't drop a lot of those top tier. So Baal was the only boss that could actually drop all of these items, but he didn't have the best chances on it. And then additionally, he takes a little bit to get to, right? You have to go through the Throne of Destruction. You have to fight all of the waves, and then you kill him. And now it's 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes every time you kill Baal. And that's just pretty slow. So the best ways to get these sorts of items were going along and doing your pit runs and doing your, chaos runs and whatever, but you're just killing the monsters, the unique packs as you're going through these areas and killing all of those, and those are actually going to be the best chances. So, what has fully changed with all of this and why is it so good? Let's look a little bit into the math here. So this is from the great Pavki. Now, Pavki has done a lot of fantastic math and fantastic looting and runs and all sorts of pieces. And I will link these lists down below for you guys. But I want to at least go over a little bit of some of the stuff. So here he did 10,000 Terrorzone and Duriel and Diablo kills. And this is some of the pieces and recommendations and everything that he has going through it and what it all is. So first off, of course, he talks about how we can now determine Terrorzones for single player, which is great. But additionally, level 91, yada, 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 the notable monsters, all of these things. First thing I want to talk about is quest Andariel, or just quest monsters in general. So the first time that you kill a boss in Diablo 2, you will get what's called the quest drop. What this means is you're completing the quest, and so you are getting a little extra boost to the unique drop factor when you do so. So it just gives you a slightly better chance at getting certain items. Now, previously in Diablo 2 LOD and then in D2R even, there was a bug where you could quest bug Andariel, and essentially if you killed Andariel and then traveled over to the Loot Ghislaine in the same game, you couldn't leave the game between there. And a lot of people had you gotta do this and that. It wasn't that complicated. It was just kill Andariel, then talk to Warav and go there. You could talk to people in between. And you did it in the same game, then you would quest bug her, and every time you killed her, it would always give you the quest drops. So you'd always get the better chance. However, if you didn't do this and you quit the game in between or anything of that nature, you wouldn't get the quest bug on that character forever. And so it kind of could ruin your magic finding character if you were going to be farming Andariel. So in D2R, they just fixed it up but they fixed it in the opposite way where they just said, she's permanently bugged. And so everybody gets her permanent quest bug. However, there is something even more slightly unique about Andariel, and that is that her quest bug is normally supposed to be 993, but instead quest bug Andariel actually has a unique factor of 995. And this doesn't seem like a lot, but when 1024 is every item will always be this, 993 to 995 is actually a pretty big difference. So the difference right there could be the chance from 1 in 900 to 1 in 1200, right? That is how much of a difference you can get from having a non-quest bugged, the 983 to the 995. And even 993 to 995 is probably worth at least 40 to 50 in the drop odds of items, which is a lot of runs, right? When you add it up over time. So let's take a look and I'll kind of summarize some pieces. And to explain the final bit of quest drops and quest loot table and why it's so good, you get the additional unique factor, but also you don't have junk drops, which is important. There's no potions, there's no scrolls, there's no arrows, there's no gold. All of these things are removed, which means you just get more room for items and jewelry to drop, right? So that is kind of the summary of that piece right there. So Pavki goes through and he does all of these different runs. And here is a list of the items that he drops from these different bosses. And we can see Andariel has the most runs, but of course she is going to be the fastest, right? Which is something to also consider whenever you're looking at time. Is an Andariel run will take like 17 seconds, something like that. I think we've got a Pavki doing a run right here. Enter an H to quickly go in. Tally, 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 tally. Meteor, static, hits, dead. Right? See the items, quit, rinse and repeat. Nice and easy, right? So you can get through and do these runs 15, 16, 17 seconds over and over and over and over again, which means over the course of an hour, you can get a couple hundred runs in, which is pretty nice when you have really great drop odds. As opposed to Duriel might take a little bit longer, but you can still probably get Duriels down in, under 30 seconds, around 30 seconds. It depends exactly what your map is. And then, of course, you have stuff like Diablo, right? Chaos Sanctuary to note, but you're going to have it be a little bit slower because it's taking a minute and a half when you're doing these sorts of runs, right? These sorts of things are just going to take a little bit longer to get to Diablo. So even if he has decent chances, it's just going to take a little bit longer. Now, Duriel, of course, has the issue of, and again, here's all the math of everything. Duriel, of course, has the issue of just being really slow because of the town portal. Not really slow, but just like really bad drops because of the town portal drops, right? So he has a guarantee. I feel like it's not always actually guaranteed, but he has a guarantee essentially of dropping these town portals, and this always kind of gets in the way of his drops. Again, there is more math in here, and you can get more math from all of this. But basically, town portals take up a lot of his drop slots, and thus you end up getting less gear overall. But he is extremely fast still to get to and kill, so you can kind of get a mix and match, and he's not actually terrible overall for farming, and probably ends up being pretty comparable to farming Diablo in the long run, right? So overall, if you're farming those TC87 items, Griffin's Eye, Death's Web, Tyrion's Might, etc., Andariel ends up being about 3 times faster than Duriel or Diablo, which both end up being about 1 TC87 per hour, and Andariel ends up being about 1 per 17 minutes, something along those lines, assuming that you're able to run at that sub 20 second pace right there. Mephisto, on the other hand, was not able to be run before because Mephisto was bugged where his loot was not upgraded to TC87, so he was kind of out, right? It was like, oh, that'd be really nice, but he was out. But alas, they fixed it in a recent patch. And so, of course, Pavki went along and did a bunch more running to give us some more looks. TC is treasure class. It is the item base. So you need to think of items as bases and rarities as kind of 2 separate pieces. First, when an item drops, it chooses the base. It says, is this a diadem? Is this a belt? Is this a helm? Is this a large shield? Whatever it is. Then it rolls the rarity onto that item after that. So, comparing Terrorzone Andariel and Terrorzone Mephisto, there's a lot of stuff here with all of the pieces. Again, to give you a good breakdown of what all he's saying. He's saying, first off, running players 5 over players 1 nets you about 2 more items per drop, which is really nice. But additionally, Mephisto is actually pretty decent. He has pretty good and improved, actually, more item drops than Andariel does overall on both players 1 and on players 5 there. So there is a better chance of getting more items. However, he does not have the unique factor like I talked about before. His unique factor is only going to be 983, whereas Andariel's unique factor is going to be 995 because of her quest kill. And this works out to, here is your chance for Griffin's Eye to drop with 709 MF on players 5. Terrorzone Andariel, 1 in 926. Terrorzone Mephisto, 1 in 1262. So even though Mephisto has a slightly better chance of dropping the diadem, that unique factor difference ends up being over 300. It's 340 difference in these drop odds right here. So you need 340 more Terrorzone Mephisto runs. Now, if you have a perfect Terrorzone Mephisto map where you can just get an instant teleport over, right? 1, 2 teleports and you're at that door, you could technically run it a little bit faster than Andariel, maybe a second or two faster than Andariel, assuming the damage can be done pretty quickly. For instance, we can watch right here. This is him doing a Mephisto run, but you can see this is a little bit longer. So 1, 2, 3, so an extra couple seconds of teleporting. And then, maybe an extra second, half second of killing. And you have to wait the tiny bit for the portal. But you can speed it up just a little bit there. And that could actually get these odds pretty close together. So you could actually make Mephisto pretty similar in those odds, which would be really interesting and really nice. However, in general still, you're going to have Andariel just being more efficient overall. And here you can see it's 38% more likely to drop from Terrorzone Andy, but of course you can be a little bit faster with Mephisto, so that could drop a little bit. But I think Andariel still just wins out. She's just kind of absolutely ridiculous. Now, comparing this over to other characters, other bosses and things and all of this, he shows, okay, Diablo has that similar drop of 1262, but of course that just takes a lot longer to get there. Even if you killed all the stuff in there, your overall odds are like 1 in 1037 from an overall CS run, but an overall CS run is going to take 60 seconds to a minute 30, right? If you're really moving through it all. Bale, similar idea, 1 in 1262 for Griffins, but it takes, like 2.5 minutes. So that's just going to be taking a while. Duriel right there is got a lot of complication. So he can still be good, but just not going to be as good as either of those. And then if you're looking at people like Cow King, Nilithak, Radamant, Summer, Countess, all of these, they have a much lower unique factor. And this is going to play a large role. So their Griffin's drop chance is around like 1 in 10,000, which still isn't terrible. But of course, when you're comparing this to what now exist, which is Terrorzone Andariel, Terrorzone Mephisto, and even Terrorzone Duriel and Diablo, and kind of Bale, this 1 in 10,000 is now way worse for Griffins than the 1 in 926, because honestly, the time it takes to do Terrorzone Andariel is probably pretty similar to the time it takes to do Nilithak, Radamant will take longer, Summoner will take longer, or could be, Summoner would probably be similar if you know the map, of course. Countess would take longer, Cow King would take longer, like many of these it would take longer and not even be worth it. So she is the queen of drops. This would be like an example of a perfect Mephisto map. But here are the final drop results that Pavki ended up with from Andariel and Mephisto. Of course, you're going to get some really funny ones, like Andariel dropped 0 Astrians, but Mephisto dropped 5. Mephisto dropped 0 Wind Force, but Andariel dropped 7. So you do get some funny pieces like that. But overall, you can see 108 unique TC87s versus 76, which does end up pretty much right in line with his odds of what he was saying, the chances being 38% better over there based on, his run times. So you can see kind of the difference in a lot of the stuff found. There were some instances where Mephisto dropped more, but in a lot of the instances, Andariel just ended up dropping more overall, including 9 unique sacred armors to the 2 of Mephisto, and this is just in 5,000 runs, which feels like absolutely nothing when you compare this to previous drop odds for so many of these items, which is where the insanity really exists, because if you look at old holy grails that we did in Diablo 2 LOD and all of this where Terrorzone Andy did not exist, this is just so far ahead. It's just absolutely ridiculous. To find a single Mang Song's lesson or a single Astrian or a single Death's Web, of which he's got 3, 5, and 3, you would do more than this. Right? Like the odds of those were like 1 in 110,000 or something like that, whatever it was, to find a single Mang Song's lesson from one of the unique bosses. And if you went and farmed Pindle, which was, probably like your best odds at the speed, it was still going to be like 1 in 50, 60,000, 1 in 55,000, something like that. And so now in 5,000 runs, you're just like cleaning house. Absolutely insane. This is why you must run. If you are grailing, if you are looking for these GG TC87 items and just GG items in general, you have to run Terrorzone Andariel, and honestly even Terrorzone Mephisto, right? Like, yeah, you have like a 1 in every 17 minutes or whatever. You're going to find a TC87 on average for Andariel with the solid map and good speed. But for Mephisto, it's going to be like 1 in, every 25 minutes or something? Like, even that's really super solid. Duriel's 1 in like 50 minutes. Diablo's 1 in an hour. So these maps, when TC87s are so valuable and so good, like so hard to get for your grail, being able to run these are crazy. I believe he had 700 magic find for this, if I'm not mistaken, roughly around there. I think he had to vary it somewhat, like when he goes to the Chaos Sanctuary and stuff, he has to lower it a little bit. But I think he had around 700 magic find for this piece. But remember that magic find gets worse and worse the more that you add. So the difference between 700 magic find and 500 magic find is not a lot, right? Like it's not much at all. Can I show a perfect Andy map? This is a pretty perfect Andy map right here, right? In this run. So yeah, that is a perfect map. So you can see, we'll pause it. So having it right behind is going to be 2 teleport. If you have it like just off to the left, that's not horrible either, or just off to the right, right? So like you could get there in like 1, 2, 3 teleports. But that's a 2 teleport, and then here's a 2 teleport as well, just jumping over. So this is as good of a map as you're going to get. There's also one where out of this exit, it could just be like right there. I'm not sure if that can spawn on the level 3 though. Maybe. But yeah. So you can get really close maps. And again, for Mephisto, you can get a map that's like this, where it's just right behind. So you just go boop, boop, and then you're over there and you're done. So that kind of covers it. Again, the odds, the pieces that you've been able to see right here are absolutely ridiculous. And the last thing I'll do is I will leave you with 2 nice links. The first one is the tracker, d2emu.com/tz-sp. And this will show you what Terrorzone is coming up. You can see here is the current time. And so you can see when the Cathedral and Catacombs is coming up, which is happening next hour. Woohoo! Right? So you can literally plan your days, plan your time. Oh, there's Cathedral and Catacombs at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Here's Cathedral and Catacomb at 2 a.m. on Friday. Here's Terrorzones Tombs at 10. Here's Worldstone Keep here, right? The boss ones, general ones, are going to be highlighted in this red. Though I don't see, where's Durance? Durance is in yellow. So you can also look for where like Durance of Hate is, right? The colors generally just mean like how they rate it based on loot. Durance should definitely be upgraded to red as well. So look for basically the yellow and the red there. I don't really care too much for cows. Trav can be kind of nice. But yeah, they're rated essentially on like best zones there. And then lastly, we have the D2 drop calc over here, which is updated fully for Terrorzones as well and can give you examples. So you can see right here, if I'm running 700 Magic Find, Players 5, Act 1, a Dark Stalker, right? This could just be like a random unique monster, and I'm looking for Griffins. That's 1 in 40,000. And this is in a terror zone, but let's say I'm going after named monsters and Duriel Griffins, 1 in 1,013. Right? And that's players 5. What if it's players 1? 1 in 1,560. So you can see you're really increasing your odds by being able to kill on a higher player count there. But let's say what's players 7? 1 in 999. So 14 less runs to go from players 5 to players 7, but to go from players 1 to players 5 is 550 less runs. So there's definitely a point where the added time it can take to kill just isn't worth it. And generally players 5 is that point where that's where you want to kill, and beyond that doesn't really matter. And that's just for the act bosses that you're going to come across. So I will leave you guys with all of this. There is a ton of good reading in here. There's all sorts of stuff about more how Magic Find works and all craziness that gets wild. But at the very least, I wanted to show you this because I think it is fascinating. And again, it just proves how ridiculously good these terror zones really are. So with that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe, YouTube. I hope that this was interesting. Shout out to Pavkey for running the billions of runs and doing all the cool stuff. Very impressive. Mwah! Kisses to you all, and I'll see you guys in the next Terror Zone. Andy, peace.